It is the end of 2024, and that means I'm going to be ranking all 44 books that I read in 2024. I ranked them all, I put it on this sheet of paper, I printed it out, but I'm gonna go from worst to best. Worst book I read in the entire year is The Anarchical Society. I don't even have words to read this. 2 is The Rule of the Clan, a little bit better, but not by much. Next is You Made a Fool of Death with Your Beauty. This book is a love story, and it starts out so amazing, and I love her and the guy, the main character and the guy. It's great, and then she falls in love with his dad. And I'm just not into dad shipping, dad romance, and like the son is like devastated, obviously, because like your girlfriend left you for your dad, and it was not my cup of tea. Next is A Reaping of Roses. This book had such good potential, but like literally, it was like it's like a ship of like if President Snow had a daughter and she was in the Hunger Games, but the book stops the night before the Hunger Games starts. And I was like, so where's the second one? It just was like a huge cliffhanger that's like never to be resolved. So that's why it's so down low. Read This If. This just was like a little cheesy for me, and like so many of the Read This Ifs would be then so out there that I was like, theoretically I'd be able to read like 2 of these if I was actually reading ones that only applied to me. Next is The Poppy War. I know some people love this book series, but genuinely I was terrified of the main character. I can't remember her name. I read this book in May, but yeah, I was like terrified of the main character, and she kind of was developing like psychopathic tendencies, and that spooked me. I was like, I'm scared of you, and I'm scared of what you're gonna do next. Ruthless Vows. This series, my expectations for this series were here. They were met about here. But anyway, there wasn't very much like sexy romance. It was just kind of like, and for the second book, spoiler, for the second book, he like can't remember her. So I was kind of like, why are we even playing here? So that is why Ruthless Vows is lower. Next is Revere Me. This book was great on like a smut spice level, but the plot was like, it was okay. It was okay. And like it continued on to a series. I honestly might have read the rest of them if I just didn't want to get to something else. It wasn't that bad. But I also would like it was, sometimes I like books are like this where they need to pick if they would be like smutty or storyline. Because sometimes I think if they try to do a lot of both, it ends up just being like really cluttered, and that's how this book felt to me. Next is Nevernight. Low-key devastated it's this on the list because I never do this, but I think I'm gonna go back and read the second one. And I read Nevernight, oh my gosh, August maybe even like July. I read it a long time ago, and I low-key still think about this book. It was really good. I really liked the world building. I really liked, because I feel like the general basis of it is like an assassin school, which I feel like we have seen done a lot of like an assassin world. But this one just had a really cool assassin world, and I liked the main character. I thought her like motives were good, because of course it's like revenge, but like she grows, and I liked it. Please Look After Mom is next. This book just like didn't have a conclusion. Like it just kind of stopped, and that was not the vibe for me. The Death Cure. This is my second time reading the Maze Runner series. I read it in like 6th grade, but I do think that they slightly get worse and worse as they go on. Next is The Magician's Nephew, the first book in the Narnia series. Honestly, this book was just a little long for the content. I think it could have been cut down and been a little shorter. It was a bit slow at parts, but obviously I love learning about how Narnia came to be. Next is The Scorched Trials. The Maze Runner is by far the best book in this series, in my opinion. Also the first one, The Kill Order. The Kill Order I really like. I also really like The Maze Runner, but The Scorched Trials is just so confusing, and it's so quick, and I literally was like, you need to slow down and like enunciate, bro. Next is Red Queen. I just thought this book I read this book before Powerless, but I thought Red Queen was kind of slow, and I considered reading the second one, and then I was like, but why would I? So Red Queen was just really not my alley, but it felt like very stereotypical, which like I like. I'm not saying anything bad about that, but it just like a very like, I'm different and I'm going to the palace, but it was good. Next is Binding 13. Love this series, love this book. Just so iconic and so good. I Will Always Write Back is next. This book was good and I just liked it because it was based on a true story. How to Hike the Appalachian Trail. This book was okay. Once again, like informational, which is why it's ranked higher because I'm like, it helped me more, I guess. But it was like a little naive in my opinion. The Angel Experiment. I have read this book in 7th grade, but I do think I've kind of missed the age range that it is targeted for. So it was a good first book, but I didn't read the whole series or anything. But Caraval, I don't know. I read this right after Christmas with my sister and it was okay. It kept me entertained, but I was deeply confused a lot of the time and I think it could have slowed down a lot. But that's what I'm saying, like I think it was a trade-off because it did keep me entertained because it was so fast moving. And maybe if it had really gone into the details, I would have like not liked it. So maybe why I like it is also why I kind of have it ranked lower. Girl Interrupted. Yeah, it was good and I feel like I could relate to it a lot. Next is Political Culture and the Making of Modern Nation States. If you enjoy history, I would totally recommend this book, or just like political science. It is so good, it's such a fast read. I ate this book up and then I gave it to my dad and he also loved it. It's such a good book. Next is The Bell Jar, which I really liked. It was definitely like a very sad read, but very good. Next is Powerless. Loved this book. Loved it. Low key, I like some tension, but I'm kind of like, let's get a move on. You know what I mean? Like, can they like maybe kiss or like care about each other? If you're wondering what Powerless, I don't know if anyone here is watching this, is on Book Talk, but people talk about how Powerless stole the idea from Red Queen. There is an exact scene in Powerless that word for word, I think that author took from Red Queen. Like literally, like I literally was like, I just read this. Like it was kind of crazy, but I did like Powerless a lot more than Red Queen, just because it had some more like interesting elements. And Powerless, the perfect way to describe Powerless is Red Queen plus The Hunger Games. Like that is literally what Powerless is. I really liked it. Next is Thunderhead. This is in the, I don't know how to say it, Scythe? Scythe? But it's part of that series, and Thunderhead is the middle one. And yeah, it was like the slowest one of the 3, but I still really liked this series. And it got slow at times, but I always wanted to know what was gonna happen. So I did like Thunderhead. Next is Scythe, the first book in the series. And sadly, this is the only time that we get any romance between the 2 main characters. Like genuinely, that's the one thing about this book that it just is a loss, a heartbreak on my heart, is that the romance just like slowly goes down throughout the series. Like they start seeing each other less and less and less. It's devastating. 13 Treasures. I read this book as a child and was kind of scared of it, so I wanted to read it again and see if I'd still be scared of it. And I can see why it freaked me out as a child. The fairies in it are mean and like really physically abuse the main character. But I do think it would be a great lead-in for maybe like older, maybe like upper middle school perhaps. And like I did enjoy reading it. I didn't read obviously the rest of the series, but I did really like reading it. Next is Legendary. This is the second Caraval book, and I liked it way more than the first one, but I did like the second one a lot better because it was way faster paced and I just knew a bit more of what was going on. Next is The Maze Runner. The Maze Runner is just like an incredible book. It's so good. I literally feel like you can enjoy it at any age, even though it is for like children. It's so good and I really like reading it. Next is Secrets and Masks. If you have any care in your heart for Harry Potter, Draco, Hermione, if you liked Manacled, oh my gosh. Secrets and Masks is a million times better than Manacled, and I will ride or die by that. I love Secrets and Masks, so good. Next is I Never Metaphor I Didn't Like. This was a very light read. Honestly, could pick up and put it down kind of like as you wanted. Next is The Toll. This is the last book in the Sky series, and it's definitely the best. It's so good. The toll is told by like 8 different characters. You're introduced to a ton of new people, and the perspectives are switching up constantly. Next is Red Rising, and I just realized I literally forgot to include the second book in this series, so I'm just gonna include Golden Sun. The Red Rising, love the concept. Obsessed with the concept. Such good word building, such good ideas. Like, I genuinely, so epic. But the writing style was not for me. And that it felt like whenever I wanted this author to slow down, we were flying through days. And then whenever I was like, can we please speed this up? We had to describe the Red Rising, the main thick of it, without going into like the related plot, is that it's like the Hunger Games. So imagine you have a team, and it's like 50 people on your team. So you have a huge team, and also the arena is like miles and miles and miles, like huge wilderness expanse. And instead of like killing people, you can kill people, but that's not the goal. The goal is you have this little like magical wand, literally, and when you tap it to another team's forehead, they become your slave, the team slave. And so your group's like Sigma thing is on their forehead. So you want to get all groups. The way it ends, and it can go on for months, the game can, is when one team has everyone in the entire group is their slave. So it was a great concept, but just the writing was a bit rough. Not rough, that sounds rude. Exceptional writing, not the pacing was not my preference. The second one was Golden Sun. Golden Sun tested me. I thought about DNFing it multiple times. It was really slow when I didn't want it to be. And then he would fly through things, and I was like, why are we flying through this? And the main love interest, Mustang, also is like, I think he could have really, really built up the tension and love story between the two of them, but it is very like, we've kissed once and I don't talk to you. Okay, so Golden Sun would be way lower, but Red Rising was good. Next is The 5 People You Meet in Heaven. Exceptional book, quick read, like 100 pages. Literally you could read it in a day. Super good. Next is The Poisonwood Bible. This is a hefty book. The end could have wrapped up a little quicker, but the entire book was exceptional. Now we are getting into the section that is my 5-star reads. Racism. This book is very good. It's very brief, as it's called, a brief introduction. The Bees. Next is Daughter of the Pirate King. This book was very good, very quick, very fun read, kept me on my toes. Very good plot. I liked it. If He Had Been With Me. Okay, we're gonna take 2 minutes just to reflect on this. If He Had Been With Me, this gets 5 stars because the entire book, I'm obsessed with this author's writing style. I am obsessed with the main character. The main character is me. I am her. Like, I am reading every single thing and I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is me in high school. I'm like obsessed. So the entire time I'm like 5 stars, 5 stars. The ending, everyone was like, it's so sad. Spoiler, but he dies. That would have been heartbreaking, but then they have to go on and keep making it more and more problematic and like more like trying to like make it cut deeper, when in reality, to me, you're just making it like more and more superficial. Like, I don't know, but I did give it 5 stars because the girl, like the main character is me. I genuinely afterward, I would cry reading that book, not the end, because I was just like, she experienced something and I would be like mirroring, like she would have thoughts, the exact thoughts I had in high school. I mean, it was just like crazy. I literally was like, how is this possible? So I love the main character. Like if it was ever a movie, I would audition. As someone with 0 acting experience and very little professionalism, I would audition and beg, because that girl, space in my heart. Okay, now we are on to my top 5. My top 5 books of 2024. So coming in at number 5 is Women, Food, and God. This book's exceptional. And if you've had any issues with eating, ever, highly recommend this book. It's exceptional. Saving Six. This is so high ranked because I thought the writing style was very well. I thought Chloe Walsh handled diction very well, and how that impacts a relationship. Next, 3rd book of the entire year is I Who Have Never Known Men. Very interesting book, loved it. Usually I'm not one for like leaving things on a huge cliffhanger and like not telling you any information, but I loved this book. And I loved how everything was just like up to interpretation. I'm literally obsessed. 4 is Reckless. Such a good book. Flew through it in a day. Loved it. Loved the plot twists. Like genuinely just loved it. Last but not least, first, the best book I read in an entire year. Caitlin, my best friend, also read it. Becoming Odessa. This book is so good. Highly recommend it. It's very interesting, very fast paced. It definitely left me wanting more, which is what I think you want from a great writer, is when you are left wanting more, and that is how I feel about Becoming Odessa. So those are my top 44, 43, 45 books this year. But now, I'm gonna tell you the books I DNF'd. And a short explanation why, very short. Okay, first is The Auction, too slow, and I just like was like, can we please get into this? Someone Who Will Love You in All Your Damaged Glory started too weird and I just couldn't get into it. I was lost and it was just weird. 3, The Wind Up Bird Chronicle. I almost read half of this book. I tried so hard, but it was so slow. I literally like was like, I'm gonna cry before I finish this book. 12 Rules for Life. My dad is obsessed with this book. I just couldn't. It was a bit too weird. I got through the first 2 rules and him talking about lobsters and Adam and Eve. I was like, I have to scratch this one. Green Light. Emily, my friend Emily just begged me to read this and it never even sounded good to me, but I wanted to, you know, try to read it because like she loves it. I will read it. Next is the Bare Bones Camera Course. I had to read like half of this for school and I was like, I'll just keep reading it. Yeah. Morning Star. Morning Star does sound really good, and someone on TikTok told me that it's like the best one of the series of Red Rising, but just after Golden Sun, I was done. Like Golden Sun was just so slow for me. Madame Bovary, I think is how you say this. This, I want to try to read this again. I just like, another book came in the library, and I was like, I had to reread the first chapter genuinely 5 times to like figure out what was going on. So I was just like, I'm gonna scratch this for right now. It's like a read when I don't have school. Bonecryer's Moon. This book was just like, fine. I honestly think I just DNF'd it because another book came in at the library I wanted to read more. And I was like, this isn't good enough to like hold my attention, but it wasn't like bad. I was just like, there's other things I'd rather be reading. A Shadow in the Ember. I also want to read the series. I just was unaware of what order to read them in. So apparently this is not the one to start with because I was completely lost. Like I was so lost that I thought it was like, what? So I just DNF'd it. And then Evolution of International Society. Boring. Boring, don't recommend. Women Talking. This was just traumatic, but more than anything, so slow. So slow. I literally was like, oh my gosh, this is like, we're actually like writing about nothing. It was not my cup of tea. And then lastly, I DNF'd The Last Hero. I read the entire Percy Jackson series last year. So this was like right in January. I DNF'd it because I finished like whatever the last book is in the Percy Jackson. I started on the Heroes of Olympus, which I have read before, but I just wanted to try to like keep reading. And then I was like, I'm kind of ready for something new. I got pretty far into it, but I was just like, you know, like I've read enough Percy Jackson. You know, I'm okay. But I prefer Percy Jackson over Harry Potter. But anyway, those are my hot takes. Those are my loves of 2024. I love reading, and genuinely, if anyone is watching this that doesn't know me personally and wants to comment anything about any of these books, I would love to hear any of your thoughts, any of your takes. And if you're watching this and do know me and you've read any of these books or have any cares at all, text me about them and I will talk to you. I love books and I love talking about books. So anyway, hope everyone had a great 2024 years of reads, and I'll see you next time. Bye.